Thanks very much. Well, let's return very much to our top story. The biggest shake-up in the welfare system for decades. Sweeping changes to housing and council tax benefits and disability allowance. They come into force today. The government says the changes will save money and encourage people back to work. But critics argue that they will target the most vulnerable in society. Well, lots of people have been in touch and asking about the specific effects some of these changes will have. With me to answer some of those questions, as you can see, is Phil Agornick, the director of the online benefits calculator entitled2.co.uk. And we're very grateful for your time to come in and actually answer so many queries, because in many senses this is quite complicated. Let me just start with a brief question from one of the texts here that says actually people won't actually realise what is happening for a little while because it is so complicated and people don't actually know. Is that something that you're hearing?
Yeah, it is very complicated. Actually, people have known about these changes coming up for quite a while, but obviously the reality hit today when the changes come into place. So yes, some people will come to our website because they've heard about the changes. Other people just want to check their benefit entitlement and suddenly discover there's a whole bunch of important changes taking place, as I said, from now and later this month.
Let's go to a question from Emma Harvey, who says, will the new universal credit include child benefit, or will that be separate, so that what exactly will be included in this universal credit that we hear about? OK, the answer to Emma's question is no, child benefit is excluded. What's in universal credit are the three current out-of-work benefits, which are income support, job seekers allowance, employment and support allowance. Then tax credits, they go in. And then importantly, housing benefit, which is support for rent, goes into universal credit. So those ones are included. Other things like child benefit, carers allowance are outside of the system. Now, a lot of traffic about just the changes to the housing benefits. This one from Christopher in Glasgow, who says, I have a two-bedroom flat with a housing association. I'm also a full-time single dad to a 6-year-old boy, and he stays with me full-time as he does not see his mother. Will the bedroom tax, as he calls it, affect me and my son? No, it won't, is the answer. He's entitled to one bedroom for him and one bedroom for his son. Now, the important point is because he sounds like he's claiming child benefit for his son. So even if he saw his mum, you know, 1 or 2 nights a week, it wouldn't make a difference. The entitlement is for the adult or the couple, 1 bedroom, and for the children, if you've only got one, it's 1 bedroom. If you've got 2 children, it depends on their age and gender as to whether they are expected to share or not. I mentioned that there had been a lot of traffic about that, and it's sort of dominated much of the conversation about the changes today. In terms of the basic advice that you have been offering to people that are contacting you, what would it be on this particular area? On the bedroom tax, I mean, people have got to think about their options seriously in terms of if they're affected moving house, is that one option? Trying to get more income through working more if they can get it, but for some people getting a lodger will be the right option. There's no... And you'd be allowed to do that, would you? In most councils and housing associations, even if they haven't until now, they're thinking again about their policies because they recognise it's a solution for some people to the issue of the benefit cut and having a spare room. Another one here about universal credit. How sure is the government that the systems are all in place for when universal credit comes in and people won't be left for weeks without? The key thing about universal credit is it's coming in stages by postcode. So what we saw this week was, rather than being 4 pilots in April, we're going to have 1 in Ashton-under-Lyne. The 3 who are going to be in April will now be in June. And the rest of the country starts in October, but the actual rollout will be postcode by postcode. So people shouldn't think of it as a big bang, they should think of it as the start of a process. Whether people will be left without, I doubt they'll be left without. The government's reaction, I think, will be to do the rollout much more slowly and take more time. So it was already expected to last until 2017. It might go on to 2018 or 2019, but I don't think they'll let people go without. Now, the changes in council tax and who actually pays, what are the numbers that we are talking about, this change that has come into effect today? How many people does that affect? OK. About 2.5 million working age people claim council tax benefit, pensioners aren't affected, and about 80% of councils are
cutting the amount of help they give. So it's something like 2 million people who are going to be losing out.
Just a final question here from Moira Cunningham, who has written into us and said, I'm in receipt of incapacity DLA benefits and have considered volunteering as a therapeutic tool. Will this have a detrimental impact on my entitlement?
It's difficult to tell from that exact example there. In general, the assessment is about activity, what's called activities of daily living, what you can do. Okay, so if you take therapeutic work, it is not meant to affect the assessment. The assessment is about what's called whether you're work ready. And if you are work ready, then you get put into one group, and if you're in this other group, you get put into something called the support group. But I don't think the assessment per se should put her off.
Just a final quick thought. Have you had any calculation, have you done any calculations, just trying to work out, in the round with all of these changes, roughly how much people are going to actually have their financial circumstances changed? Okay,
well, I'm afraid the answer is it all depends where you live and what your rent is. The cut on the spare room subsidy or the bedroom tax is the really big one for lots of people. If you've got 2 spare rooms, it's a 25% cut. So if you're paying £200 a week rent, that's £50 a week. But obviously, in some parts of the country, that kind of rent level is realistic. In other parts of the country, it's a lot less, but it does vary a great deal from place to place.
All right, Phil, thank you so much for coming in to actually answer some of the questions people have sent in. Well, there is a BBC News website special section on all of these changes. It's entitled Your Benefits and Tax Credits, and you can find plenty more detail about the welfare changes. So a lot of really useful information available there on the BBC's website.